Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Molly, I'm the maker behind Lefty Knits, and today I want to discuss my plans for spring while I work on a little bit of knitting. I guess I'll start out with what I'm wearing. So this is the textbook cowl by Casey Herlihy. It is in Cape Cod Yarn Co. yarn in an unknown colorway. The base is the Mashpee base. I've talked about this cowl before. I might have worn it before. It was, I think, the first finished object of my Make 9 this year, so I'll link some videos where I talk about it if you want to know more, and I'll have the pattern in the yarn below. Now, in terms of what I'm working on, this will look familiar to you if you've been around my channel in the last little while. This is the My Time sweater by Lily Kate France. I'm working in Scopius Terrazzo and Valley Yarn Southampton, and I've discussed this before, including as a finished object in my last episode, my last podcast episode. Now, this was finished, and I blocked it, and then I tried it on, and the sleeves were so big. Sorry, I just noticed a stitch that I should have unraveled, one of the drops that I didn't drop. Anyway, this was a finished object. I knit the whole thing, I blocked it. The sleeves were really, really, really big though. When I tried it on, they were like 6 inches too long. And I was a little worried that was gonna happen. Just because, you know, like, I mean, the measurement didn't seem that off. I think my gauge was a little bit, like, off in the row count. Like, I think my rows were, like, I had fewer rows per inch than the pattern called for in the end. I'm not totally certain, but either way, because they were so long and because there's this like drop stitch detail on the sleeve, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to like recreate that and frog it back just to where I needed to like reimagine the decreases. So I actually just fully frogged both sleeves and reknit both of them. And I made them much shorter. I'll probably talk about this in a future podcast episode, but I made them a lot shorter, which then meant that I had more yarn left, which now means that I'm adding to the body. Because the body was like an okay length. It probably came like just to the top of my waistband in like a higher waist pant. But ideally I'd like this to maybe be like a work appropriate shirt, like with a tank underneath or something, like something that maybe I could wear to an office if it was not super formal. I just have an inch or two of straight stockinette now that I've put this on the needles. I ripped back the Italian bind off and the ribbing, so I'm just gonna knit another inch or two of stockinette, and it seems like the perfect thing to work on while I discuss my spring plans. It's hard for me to think about spring right now because it's been really, really, really cold here. For here. I mean, I know like we're not, you know, Canada, we're not the Northeast, we're not, I don't know, we're not somewhere that cold, you know, like, and I know that. The Bay Area is like a pretty temperate climate where like, I mean, I'm speaking in Fahrenheit here, but usually like it doesn't get much below the 50s on a regular basis, and it doesn't get much above the 80s on a regular basis. But it has been freezing and very rainy here for the entire winter. Like, I think it's a pretty much a record-breaking winter in terms of rain. I know I can only remember like one winter where it rained close to this much. And I guess technically we are in spring now. We've been in spring for like a little over a week. But it's continued to rain here. It's been getting down into the 30s at night. And we like try to keep our heat use to a minimum because it's not like unbearably cold here. And it is very expensive to heat our like tiny apartment to not even that warm of a temperature. So mostly my boyfriend and I have just been trying to bundle up and, you know, grit our teeth and just get through it, because it should end soon, but we'll see. We have a little heating pad that is now our cat's, so she is the warm one in the house, plus she has a fur coat. So, you know, like, I'm talking about spring in theory, but it doesn't feel very springy to me. And that's okay. It's cold. I'm cold. So the first thing that I'm hoping to make this spring is one of two pullover patterns by Ozetta. So I'd like to either make the Lakes pullover or the Moonset pullover. And I think the Lakes pullover in particular is like not a super springy knit to most people. It's a worsted weight pullover. I would be using Knit Picks Upcycle Reserve 100% wool worsted, which is a yarn that I have mentioned wanting to get out of my stash in the past. Like I said, it's been cold, it's been rainy, and I'd love something that I could just like throw on over some layers, because I don't really have any sweatshirts or any sweaters that are like super, I don't have any sweaters with that much ease. This is something I just watched Night Sky Knitting's newest episode last night, and Rachel was talking about this a little bit, where like as a smaller person she has been afraid of ease, I guess, like worried about too much ease. And I kind of like, I relate to that. I think being smaller, being impatient, there's a few reasons that like I tend to gravitate towards sweaters that don't have that much ease. You know, like I'm 5'4", I'm not super tall. I don't want to feel like engulfed by my sweaters. And as Rachel mentioned, like, you know, the proportions of my body are not like necessarily appropriate for all store-bought sweaters. So I think it's time for me to make myself like a bigger sweater. And the caveat is that I might not have quite enough yarn. I think I'm going to shoot for like 6 to 8 inches of ease. Another reason that I tend to have like less ease is that I'm usually kind of at the cusp of like a medium or a small or a medium, I guess. I have like a 36 or 37 inch bust, and a lot of times the sizes are like 32 to 34 and 36 to 38, and so inches around the bust. And so I feel like when that is like sometimes the larger size gives me more ease than I would want. And I'm a little bit of a looser knitter, so oftentimes my gauge is like a little bit looser. So I would have even more ease. So like I tend to size down a lot, just because it tends to give me the fit I'm looking for a little bit more. But I have decided that maybe I could use something that had a little bit more, was a little roomier. I think the concept of bougie sweatshirts has been thrown around a lot recently, in knitting podcasts and just in the knitting world. And I think there's a knit along happening. I don't know if it's run by Young Folk Knits, but I think I have heard Casey of that channel mention it before. And like, I'm not participating in that make along. I think it's actually finishing soon, but it has had me thinking like maybe I could go for that kind of idea. So yeah, I'm planning on eventually making the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta. And because even when it actually does like warm up for good this like spring and summer in the Bay Area, there are a lot of temperature fluctuations, and like having a layer that I feel comfortable just throwing on isn't a bad thing. I think like it's something that I might even reach for throughout the summer with like lighter attire underneath. So I know it's not very springy, but that's kind of my first plan. The alternative that I might make instead, that does feel a little bit springier, is the Moonset Pullover by Ozetta. So that is a V-neck pattern. It has like a little detail at the V where like it's kind of like a wraparound collar, I guess. Like I think the band, and I haven't read the pattern fully, is like double knit. My guess is that it's double knit around, like I suppose essentially vertically, like in line with the stitches of the neckline, as opposed to picking up around and working inward, if that makes sense. So like one side of the front is in front of the other in the V-neck. I'm gonna put up a picture, so hopefully that makes sense. There's like a T that might be fingering weight, I don't know, but I would make the pullover version, which is good for DK yarn. It's a DK pattern. And if I made that, I would use this Kindred DK weight yarn. So this yarn is one I was going to make a pattern in, but it's been discontinued. It's 68% alpaca, 32% Peruvian Pima cotton. This is the color Saltwater, and there's 115 yards in 50 grams. So I've made a sweater, or most of a sweater out of it, and frogged it and re-knit it like 3 times, which I have talked about before. But it's been discontinued, so I'm not going to make a pattern in it to try to like release more widely anymore. So I've been looking for a yarn for it, and I think the Moonset Pullover would be great. And I think that one is a little bit more spring appropriate actually, because of the V-neck, because it's, you know, a slightly lighter yarn. And I'll probably I might make both of them. I'll definitely make both of them eventually. I might make both of them in the like coming months. Or I might hold off on one until it's like the fall or later summer. But one of those is definitely like something I'll pick up for the fall. I have already knit a swatch for the Lakes Pullover, or for the spring. One of these is something I'm going to make for the spring. And this one I've already swatched with this yarn, with the Knit Picks Upcycle Reserve in, I don't know if I said the color. The color's Amarillo. And so this is probably going to be the first one. This yarn has also been in my stash, I think, longer than almost anything else. So I think I just might want to like get this over with, have this ASAP to be cozy in. And I'll save the Moonset Pullover for a little later, but I don't know. One of these is going to be my spring cast on, because I guess I haven't cast on anything, or at least any garments for myself, since the beginning of spring. So that's going to be one of those Ozetta patterns, is going to be my first pattern, or my first project. Pattern that I plan on making this spring is the Lodestar by Kirsten Rivetta. So I think I'll use the or I will use, the Valley Yarns Northfield in the color Sea Spray. This yarn is 70% merino wool, 20% baby alpaca, and 10% silk. This yarn is this ball's 50 grams and 124 yards. So this is a DK weight pattern as well. And the Lodestar is like a pattern that I've had on my list for like 2 years now. And I've kind of been waiting to see if I could find the perfect yarn for it. I think I saw it on Ravelry around the time the issue of Pom Pom magazine that it's in came out, and I like immediately was like, I need to get my hands on this. And I think I was just at the point in my knitting career where like I was feeling like I could justify buying like a mag or a book of knitting patterns. So this is currently the first and only issue of Pom Pom that I own. I don't have any other knitting magazines or like pattern books or anything. And I still haven't made anything from it. I got it in August of 2021 when I went to Farmer's Daughter Fibers in Montana when I was there with my boyfriend's family. And I think this is the type of thing where like I've just been sitting on this yarn or on this pattern, like waiting to find the perfect yarn for it. And like I've bought a couple yarns thinking that that was what I would use it for, but the gauge wasn't right, whatever, something was always not right. And after I made my video about wanting to use up certain yarns from my stash, and I was looking at this yarn, I thought, oh, like, you know, I was looking at DK weight patterns, the yardage, I think I have just under 1,000 yards of this. So it's like not quite enough for a full length, like a full sleeve, even probably like cropped-ish sweater. So it just like, it's kind of a weird amount of yarn that I have. And like, I bought this yarn intending to make like a self-drafted mock neck, like tighter fitting sweater with like no ease and waist shaping and whatever. But I've decided that I'd rather use it for something else. And when, you know, I was doing these Ravelry searches, the Lodestar came up and I was like, wait a minute. I've wanted to make that pattern forever. And I actually think that this yarn will look really good in that pattern. And it looks like I have just enough. I think I'm like 6 yards short or something. But given that I am like a little bit shorter than most people, I think I'll probably just make the sleeves, knit the body till I run out of yarn, call it a day. But it has this really gorgeous like lace detailing around the shoulders. It's like a 3/4 sleeve length, so it feels like a good transitional piece, probably something that I could even wear in summer here in the Bay Area. And I'm really excited to finally break out that issue of Pom Pom, cast on the project, have this yarn out of my stash. Like, it really feels like a true win in all areas to be making that sweater. So I think that'll be the second thing I make. So the third thing I want to make is the Spring Sorrel by Wool and Pine. So for that, I'm going to use this Sublime Yarns Baby Cashmere Merino Silk DK. So this is 75% extra fine merino, 20% silk, and 5% cashmere. It is 127 yards for 50 grams, and I have it in this color. I think the color is called Bunty Blue, or Bunting Blue. The shade is 0493, and I'll have it linked below. This is, again, another yarn I wanted to use this year, and I have, I think, like 700 some yards of it, so less than this Valley Yarns Northfield, but I was kind of expecting to make like the same-ish thing with it, maybe short sleeve in this color and like longer sleeve in this color. But again, I've decided I don't really want to pursue making that kind of like tighter mock neck top that I was planning. So I went to Ravelry with this amount of yarn as well to be like, what could I make with this? And dip stitch is, you know, very big these days. It's popular. It looks really cool. I've admired the Sorel collection by Wool and Pine for a long time. They have like a spring sorrel, a summer sorrel, I think a regular sorrel. There's different weights, and you know, some of them are more built for fades, etc. Like there's a variety of them, and I've wanted to make one for a while. And with the amount of yarn that I had inputted into Ravelry, the spring sorrel came up as one of the options. So I was looking at it, and yeah, I just decided that it would probably look good in this yarn and that this yarn would work well. I think that I'll probably make this one like pretty cropped. I might make the sleeves a little longer. It's like a short sleeve, very cropped tee, essentially, in DK weight yarn with a dip stitch yoke. And I've been wearing more dresses recently, and I would, you know, like I like the look of a like cropped tee or sweater over a dress. I sometimes hesitate to make things cropped enough to like really be able to pull the look off, I think, because it has to be like pretty short. Like I feel like it kind of has to hit. I mean, look, you can, whatever you think like looks good on you and you want to wear is like fine. I'm not trying to like police how people choose to wear their clothes or whatever, but like for me, I feel like I want the dress, like if I'm wearing something over a dress, I want it to be like kind of like where my natural waist is, like ending around there, so that it doesn't like I feel like I need to crop it quite a bit. And when I've tried to maybe make things that cropped in the past, I've ended up overshooting, either because I chickened out a little, or because I like tried to stop it and then it blocked out a little bit longer than that. So this time I think I'm gonna really commit to trying to make this like more cropped than usual, like, you know, belly button-ish, a little higher than belly button, maybe even length. The thing is, like, you can always add or subtract length, provided you have the yarn to add length. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna try to do that, and if I don't like it, or if I overshoot like I have in the past, like that's okay. It's not a huge deal. But it does seem like a good opportunity to maybe make something that's a little bit more appropriate for wear with some of my dresses for spring. The last project I want to talk about is my the only item from here on my Make 9. It is the Quilty by Tiff Nealon. So I want to use the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply, which is this yarn. I have it in the colorway Hibiscus. It's 100% merino, I think. Yeah, 100% merino wool, and there are 382 yards per hank, and I have 2. And then I'll be using Bear Knit Pick Stroll as the contrast colors. So this is a circular yoke colorwork sweater. Like I said, an item from my Make 9 that I've talked about, and it's a fingering weight tee. It feels pretty appropriate for spring, maybe summer, especially here where we have pretty mild summers, but like because it is color work, the yoke at least will be a little bit thicker, so I think it'll be a good spring piece. I think it's a really pretty piece. I'm excited to have it. I don't do too much stranded color work, and I'm pretty sure this is stranded, not mosaic color work. Either way, like I don't tend to do that much color work, so I think that it'll be fun, a nice change. There is still a good amount of like stockinette, and I think that there's like a little like contrast color like pico like bind off on the bottom hem, which is kind of fun. I'm not sure, I might do it in the regular color, like the main color. I'm not certain, but either way, like I think it's a really like it's a pretty classic silhouette, a relatively classic like color work sort of piece, but it has these like fun little details like the picot edging that I think will be nice. And I've never made a pattern by Tiff Nealon, but I've long admired many of her patterns, so I'm excited to finally cast that one on. And like I've done really well on my Make 9. I think I'll do a video of that soon, talking about kind of where I'm at and how it's all been going. And it's been going really well. At the beginning of the year, I really put in a lot of work and knit a lot of things for my Make 9. And then I've kind of had this lull where I've been like off script, I guess, a little bit. So it'll be exciting to kind of go back and check another thing off the list, because I can be kind of like a list-oriented, goal-oriented, like person who wants to kind of set those goals for myself and actually finish them, do the things I said, cross them off my list, and that does give me like a lot of satisfaction. So those are the 4/5 garments I sort of have on my list for this spring. I have other things, like I have a lot of baby knits coming up. I have some things I want to try to draft for myself. I'll probably be working on some like cowls and socks and shawls and stuff as well. But I think sometimes it's nice to make these lists to kind of hold myself accountable, especially since most of these things use yarn that is like pretty deep stash, yarn that I've had sitting around for a while. Now I won't say like these probably won't all get done by like canonical summer, like I don't know if I'll finish all of these things by June 21st or 20th or whatever. And I do want to, like, if I find myself like going off on a tangent, as long as that tangent doesn't involve buying too much yarn, I think I'll probably let myself go with it. Like knitting is first and foremost a hobby, and sometimes things come along that I feel really like excited to cast on, really energized about, and I kind of want to follow that energy and that desire when I feel it. Like I don't, although I do get a lot of like satisfaction and some happiness from being able to like create a list and check it off. I don't want knitting to only be that, like I don't want knitting to just be me like making these lists of projects and then crossing them off, and then like I wear everything that I knit. It's not that I won't wear these things even if I don't feel like joy making them, but like I enjoy the process of knitting, and I don't want to like subsume that in my desire to check things off of a list. I'm really curious to hear what your spring knitting plans are. Do you have anything coming up that feels springy? Have you already started knitting for spring? Because I feel like I very much have not. I mean, seasonal knitting has maybe never been my strong suit, except when I lived in Boston and like would not knit for the entire summer because I was too like sweaty and hot. But you know, I feel like I kind of go where my knitting mojo takes me more than anything else, and just check things off of a really long list, kind of irrespective of the season that I'm in. But yeah, I'm curious. I know a lot of people really knit for seasons. I'd love to know what you're working on. If the things you're working on are sort of what you might call spring knits. I hope nobody feels too scandalized by me including a worsted weight sweater on my spring knit list. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love if you would consider giving it a like and subscribing. I typically post 2 to 3 episodes a month on Fridays. I would say I'm sticking around 3. As I've said before, I am in the final throes of my PhD program. So I might get a little bit more sporadic, but so far I'm keeping it at around 2 to 3 Fridays a month. And yeah, I post about what I've been working on. Next week I plan to tell you all about my March knitting and how that's been going, how my stash down has been going. So tune in next week for that. Thanks so much for joining again. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.